Good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Laura Batalla and I'm the Secretary General of the EU-Turkey Forum. We are glad to see so much interest in today's event, especially from the US, despite the early hour. Before starting, I just want to remind everyone that there's going to be simultaneous interpretation to Turkish. So all you need to do is to click on the interpretation box at the bottom of your screen and then click on the Japanese option. That's going to be your Turkish channel, despite the name. So we are very glad as the EU-Turkey Forum to organize this event together today with our long-standing partner, the Economic Development Foundation. This is our first activity under the new leadership of the EU-Turkey Forum in the new legislative term, and also the first in the COVID-19 era. We are also adapting ourselves to the new times by holding our activities online. For the past decade, for those who don't know the EU-Turkey Forum, we have been committed to build bridges of understanding and cooperation between Turkey and the EU. And with our renewed leadership, we aspire to continue to develop a fruitful and positive relationship with Turkey. You will be hearing shortly from our newly elected chair, Mr. Kris, but in the future, you will also have the opportunity to meet the forum's vice chairs, like Kati Piri from the Socialists and Democrats group, Urmas Payet from Renew Europe, and Tineke Strik from the Greens IFA group. Today, we also have the pleasure to have Mr. Nacho Sánchez Amor, the EP Turkey Rapporteur, with us. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to our new chair, Mr. Kris Peeters. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And once again, it's for me a great honor and pleasure to be the new chair of this very important platform. A short introduction, I'm also new in the European Parliament. Therefore, I was Deputy Prime Minister in Belgium, and now I'm active in the European Parliament. And with my colleague, I'm also Shadow Rapporteur. He's Rapporteur. I'm Shadow Rapporteur for the report on Turkey. And I'm also the chair of the European Parliament delegation to NATO. A short introduction of myself, but once again, it's for me a great pleasure to be part of this conference call. And I hope that we can, as chair from the EU-Turkey platform, bring these two partners together. Saying that, I must say that we have recently a lot of issues between us. The most recent issue and debate and controversial discussion is, of course, the decision to convert the status of Hagia Sophia into a mosque. That is a decision or announcement of a decision that also here in this parliament have bring a lot of reactions. I mentioned also the hostile behavior of Turkish warships and the reaction of France and the European Union. We have, for the moment, a lot of incidents, and that's, of course, not the way to develop our relationship. Saying that, when you look to the economics, our relationship between EU and Turkey is a very, very important one. When you look to the figures, Turkey is or was the EU's 5th largest trading partner, and also for Turkey, EU is very, very important. And that, I think, is the basis that we can use to have a new positive relation in the future. I mentioned one element that can also be part of the solution is a discussion about the modernizing of the customs union. Very important, started a long time ago. December 2016, the Commission proposed to modernize this customs union, but for the moment, there is no very big progress in that discussion. Of course, I forgot another element is the element about gas and oil and the Cyprus discussion. Also, that is, I think, very important to have that in mind. But saying that, first of all, economic relationships are very, very important, not only for EU, but also for Turkey. Secondly, the customs union is a very important one and must be modernized. And then coming to the reality and the actuality of today, we have, of course, now the German presidency of the European Union. And I must say that there is a lot of faith and a lot of positive vibes about this presidency, not only from the European Union, in the European Union, but also that this presidency can take another direction in the relationship between Turkey and the EU, another relationship that means a relationship where we can build once again the trust between us, because given all the problems and the incidents, there is now some problems with the trust between Turkey and EU. And I hope that the German presidency can make an opening and can start to build this trust between us once again. German EU presidency can make the difference, but, and I end with some questions, will the German EU presidency be a breakthrough opportunity for EU-Turkey relations or create new disillusions? First question. Second question, how will the EU-Turkey relations evolve? Will conflicts within the NATO alliance be solved? And most importantly, will our economic partnership contribute to the restoring our partnership? And ending with a very positive note, I hope that we can organize a win-win situation, that we can tackle all the issues and incidents that are now on the table, and that we can make for both parties in the future another relationship. That is my short introduction as a new chair, and I hope that the discussion shall bring some elements to have this new win-win situation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peeters, for this very hopeful note. I would like to give the floor now to Ayhan Zeytinoğlu, the chairman of the Economic Development Foundation.
Thank you, Laura. Distinguished members of European Parliament, dear participants, welcome to our webinar on EU-Turkey relations under the German presidency. First, I would like to thank MEP Kris Peeters, Chair of the EU-Turkey Forum, and Secretary General Laura Batalla for the joint organization of this webinar. I'm joining you from Boardroom today. We have cooperated with the EP's the Turkey Forum in previous term as well. We hope to continue this cooperation further on. Today we have come together to discuss whether the German presidency can lead to a breakthrough in Turkey-EU relations. At this moment in time, we have major problems and tensions between Turkey and the EU. Yet, it is also time when the need for cooperation and dialogue at its greatest. We need to cooperate and work together both in political and economical areas. Stability and security in the Mediterranean region requires Turkey and the EU to work together. Conflicts in Syria and Libya could be resolved if Turkey and EU would be able to engage in cooperation. Resolution of the Cyprus issue would also prevent the current problems in the Eastern Mediterranean. Rather than criticizing and applying sanctions, creating opportunities for dialogue and trust would be much more beneficial. On the economic front, Turkey is the EU's fifth largest trading partner, as Mr. Peeters just mentioned. EU is Turkey's #1 trading partner. The custom union, which regulates trade and industrial products between Turkey and the EU, is no longer in line with the changes of the 21st century trade policies. We need to revise it in order to enlarge its scope to services, agriculture, and public procurement. we also need to modernize it in order to resolve bilateral problems such as dispute resolution mechanisms, parallel negotiation of FTAs with EU and Turkey, removing non-tariff barriers such as transport quotas and extra costs, and completing visa liberalization process for Turkish citizens. Long, difficult, and expensive visa procedures create a burden and obstacle in business contracts between Turkey and EU. Despite the need for modernization of the customs union, the process could not be started due to the political sanctions applied by the Council of the EU. Customs union modernization can be win-win for both Turkey and the EU. It would also support the EU's trade policy. Turkey can support the EU's initiatives to revitalize WTO. Another important point is the EU's focus on regional supply chains after the COVID-19 pandemic. Here, Turkey can play a very important role as a production hub. During COVID-19, Turkey contributed masks and medical products to several EU member states. Due to customs union, it has adopted EU norms and standards in exports to the EU. This important advantage will also help the EU in creating resilient supply chains. Dear participants, I agree with the High Representative Josep Borrell, who said Turkey is an important country with the EU, with whom we would wish to see our relations strengthened and developing. On July 9th, a debate was held in the European Parliament on Turkey. While there were several MPs who called for an end to Turkey's accession process, there were also others who supported more engagement with Turkey. I remember MEP Tinke String from Greens and European Free Alliance saying she criticized the other comments on Turkey, which did not comprehend the complexity of the security issues in the Mediterranean region. It is easy to accuse Turkey for the problems in the region without considering bordering countries such as Iran, Iraq, and Syria. We think we need a Europe with a strategic vision and united approach toward the region. As representatives of civil society in Turkey, we think that improvement of Turkey-EU relations will be best for the people of Turkey and the EU. We need to resolve problems and aim to arrive at a common ground. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ayhan Bey. And since we have the pleasure to have with us today Ambassador Christian Berger, we would like to give him also the floor and take this opportunity to thank him for his contribution to a better understanding between the EU and Turkey during his mandate. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I spotted the invitation. I immediately said, no, I have to contribute to this. We had only a few days ago, we had a very good debate with the Kocaeli Chamber of Commerce on similar issues. And I thought now with this different theme of the German presidency, it would be good to continue this. So thank you. My thanks to IKV, but also to the EU Turkey Forum for organizing this. I think this is a very timely debate at the beginning of the German presidency. Let me, however, say a couple of few things what the presidency does. A presidency is normally there to find a compromise between different positions of the member states. So I think Germany is very much aware of this, and Germany is, however, also very much aware of the expectations that are being, portrayed in the newspapers and in the media about their role. But nevertheless, it's an important country, a very important economic actor, a very important partner of Turkey. So I'm sure something very positive will come out of this 6 months. Now, what I really would hope what we would see in the next 6 months is an impetus to improve this relationship between the EU and Turkey. And we have heard from Kris Peeters, and we also have heard from Ayhan Bey what the problems are. So I will not go into this. I would only summarize them as two main issues. One is on good neighborly relationship. I mean, the issue about Eastern Mediterranean, Cyprus, Greece have already been addressed. The other one is, of course, also regarding the domestic situation, rule of law situation. And these two things together, in my view, constitute the major problems and have always been cited as reasons why we have slowed down the relationship, the accession process, the granting the mandate to the Commission for the upgrading of the customs unions, and many other aspects as well. So I think these are the two issues really we need to work on. So trust is very important. And again, this was a key word that Ambe used. And this was a word used by Mr. Borrel when he was here on Monday last week, and also when he was this Monday at the Foreign Affairs Council in Brussels, which had an important debate, a strategic debate about the relationship with Turkey. And I'm sure you've seen his press statement, which was very clear, emphasizing on two aspects. One, we have to be very clear as European Union where our interest lies, where the issues are, the concerns are that we need to discuss with Turkey, particularly Eastern Mediterranean, Libya, Syria, and many other foreign policy aspects. But he also said in the same sentence, with the same breath, he said we need to engage, we need to restore trust, we need to have a dialogue, we need to address all these important issues that have held us back in developing this relationship. So this engagement for him, I think, is very important, and we will hopefully see more of that soon. Now, the elements are there. We have the negative elements that I've already mentioned, and some of the positive elements we can build on, you have mentioned. So one is the trade aspect. So it's still a very important relationship between the European Union when it comes to economy. You mentioned the figures. And here I can see two aspects, a positive one and a negative one. The positive one is, Ambe also mentioned this, is this whole debate at the moment about strengthening the supply and the value chain by relocating business from further away from the EU or from the customs union territory to the EU or to Turkey. So here Turkey, with its very sophisticated sort of entrepreneurship, young labor force, infrastructure, surely can play an important role in that. The negative aspect is we have seen an erosion of the current customs union. So there are a lot of trade irritants that have been popping up in the last few weeks and months. Additional duties imposed, additional non-tariff requirements like disclosure forms, bureaucratic measures. So a lot of problems that we need to address. So either by discussing the new customs union or at least fixing the current customs union, I think this is another important aspect of trust and not weaken one of the strong elements of our relationship, namely trade and economy. The other one is the relationship between civil society organizations, both in the European Union and Turkey, be it in the media, be it in any other civil society parts that we are supporting. And here, the Commission has said very clearly this is something we really want to strengthen and support also in the future. The other aspect, the third one I want to mention, is migration. I mean, I'm sure I don't really have to go into detail how important that is. Our appreciation for what Turkey is doing, our appreciation that Turkey today is in a different position in 2016, with the number of refugees have doubled since then, more refugees coming, particularly from Afghanistan and from other places, and the understanding on the European side that this support to Turkey must continue. And I'm sure it will continue. This is certainly also very much in the interest of the European Union itself. So there are a number of issues, and maybe the last one I want to mention is the cooperation now, the latest one, fighting COVID. Turkey took part in a very important conference organized by the Commission in raising money for research into finding a vaccine. Important message from the President, but also financial contribution from Turkey. We also had to address very practical issues like bringing people home from Turkey to the European Union and Turkish citizens back to Turkey, also with the help of the European civil protection mechanism. So again, an important aspect, a strong aspect of cooperation between us, the European Union and Turkey. We also managed to overcome some of the problems at the borders with the green lane approach. So at the beginning, trade didn't go, but trade is important. So I think with the cooperation of both the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Transport, we managed to overcome some of this problem. So there are not only negative aspects in our relationship that we need to really work on. I'm sure there are also lots of positive aspects that we need to build on. And I think a combination of these two will hopefully reestablish the trust. And I'm convinced that the German presidency can be an important catalyst in reestablishing this trust between the European Union and Turkey. So thank you very much. I wanted to say this. Thank you for the invitation, and looking forward to the debates that you're going to have.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. It's an honor to have you with us, and we wish you all the best in your new appointment as EU's ambassador to Egypt later this year.
Thank you.
So now we would like to start the discussion. The German presidency comes at a very particularly critical time for the European Union, and expectations are not only high as regards the future of Europe, but also for a breakthrough in EU-Turkey relations. Together with our expert panel of speakers today, we will discuss how realistic these expectations are, and they will navigate us through the existing challenges while trying to identify the potential opportunities for cooperation and understanding. We have the pleasure to have with us Michael Taumann, who's the diplomatic correspondent of Die Zeit since 2013. Prior to that, he reported on Turkey and the Middle East as Die Zeit's Istanbul bureau chief. And in 2019, he was a senior fellow at the Mercator Istanbul Policy Center, where he conducted research on nationalism, and he has a forthcoming book on this topic, which will be published in September this year. We also have with us Çiğdem Nas. She's the Secretary General of the Economic Development Foundation and an Associate Professor of International Relations at Yildiz Technical University. She has extensively contributed to academic journals and publications on the EU and EU-Turkey relations. And last but not least, we have with us Funda Tekin. She is one of the directors of the Institute for Europäische Politik in Berlin and a senior research fellow at the Center of Turkey and EU Studies at the University of Cologne. Her research focuses on the future of Europe and EU-Turkey relations, and she has directed EU-funded projects on these topics. So thank you all for being with us today. Before we start, I would like to make a very brief announcement about the Q&A session. We have been collecting questions ahead of the debate, which I have already included in my moderation, but you can also ask questions, and I see that some people have started to do so in the Q&A box that you will find at the bottom of your screen. You can also address your questions to Mr. Nacho Sánchez Amor, who will be delivering a closing speech at the end of the session. I see that the first question was addressed to Mr. Ambassador. I don't know if he will be able to stay with us until the very end, but if he is and he has the time, he will probably answer the questions. I just want to remind you to introduce yourself when posing your question and to mention who you are addressing it to. We will make our best to take as many questions as time allows and ask for your understanding. So we would like to start with the priorities of the new German presidency and the future of Europe. In that regard, I would like to ask Funda. The agenda of the German presidency is quite an ambitious one, not only about how to bring the EU out of this crisis and setting the course for more European integration, but also on a number of challenges that have been pending from previous years. So how realistic is to expect a breakthrough considering the current internal EU dynamics, Funda?
Thank you, Laura. First of all, thank you for having organized this debate, which I think is highly topical and highly relevant. And also thank you to all the previous speakers so far. And I think I share most of the things that have been said so far, and I think I'm also going to elaborate on it a bit in my different interventions. First, I think indeed the German presidency is an important one, but here I fully agree with Ambassador Berger that we do have to do some expectation management, basically. And in terms of, I mean, you can call it different. You can call it a Corona presidency. You could call it a crisis presidency. But in the end, it is more about really managing things and finding compromises between the member states. And with regards to the likelihood of a breakthrough, I think the first breakthrough that the presidency will have to achieve is the breakthrough with regards to the recovery plan. I think this is really something that is the most pressing issue, and we have the summit tomorrow and we will see what comes out of it. But it is not only a relevant presidency, but it's also a presidency which is packed in terms of pressing issues, and you already mentioned it, Laura. There are a long list of issues that we inherited from previous presidencies, and like the Brexit, which you know has to be concluded by the end of the year, at least the future relationship with the United Kingdom, the multi-annual financial framework, the MFF, the Common European Asylum System. So there are certain issues that we have inherited and that we have to deal with. I think there are 3 strategic approaches for a successful presidency that we might consider. And I think, first of all, it's amidst the current crisis, we should not lose sight of the bigger picture. And here I think of Merkel's speech, which she gave in front of the European Parliament the other week, as a perfect example, because she did not start out by, you know, immediately referring to the COVID-19 pandemic, but she started out by outlining those 5 topics that for the future of Europe are important to her, like fundamental rights, cohesion, climate change, digitalization, and Europe's responsibility in the world. And after she had done that, she then kind of referred to the COVID-19 pandemic and then has underlined it as a cross-cutting issue in how far this then feeds into the different topics. I think the German presidency has to prioritize. As I said, there are first things that need to be dealt with first, like the Brexit, the MFF that do not allow any postponement, the recovery plan, and then we need to select wisely with how to invest in future topics. And I think for doing so, we need political will by leaders, which is important. We need courageous actions by institutions and support of the citizens, which is also important, and also particularly, I think, with regards also to EU-Turkey relations. But with regards to the citizens, the Conference on the Future of Europe is also important. Now with regards to Turkey, and I think this is where I would leave off in order then to trigger off the discussion on the Turkish issue, because when I looked at the different programs and monitored the preparation of the program for the presidency, I kind of realized that Turkey was not really mentioned. And then I looked at the program of the German presidency and of the trio presidency and could not find Turkey in it, not a reference. I then used the search function within the PDF file in order to make sure I had not missed it. So this is of course surprising. Merkel then did mention Turkey in her speech in front of the parliament, but she kind of grouped Turkey within, you know, the neighborhood countries. And I think this is also something that we might be aware of in terms of that. But I think now with the developments that are not really new to us, with the the conflict in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, the conflict with regards to Libya, the migration conflict we had in February and March. So it's not new that Turkey is a vital and crucial issue for the future of Europe. And now I think we can add the list of Turkey to those issues that the presidency will have to deal with. And just one final remark, I think Germany is also a good country to be a good promoter of the EU-Turkey relationship. And I'm going to end it at that.
Thank you, Funda. I think this connects with the next question that I wanted to ask to Michael in the foreign policy front. I mean, given the new developments in the international scene and the claim that the Commission wants to become a geopolitical commission, how do you see of the prospect of the EU becoming a global actor? And connected to what Funda was saying, how do you see Turkey's role in it?
Thank you, Laura, and thank you very much for inviting me to this splendid panel. I think that, in fact, and Funda just indicated that it is very surprising that Turkey was not on this list of priorities. But honestly, when you ask me in how far the EU sees itself as a global actor or can become a global actor, I would refer to Ursula von der Leyen's claim that this is a geopolitical commission. And I think that was a very important statement, but let us just for a second look at where actually are the possibilities for Europe to rise to such a position. I think when critics of the EU say, well, the EU is basically absent in foreign policy and in global issues, that's not true. And I can bring forward, and that goes without saying, that of course economically, and that is also geopolitics, if you like, trade, setting standards worldwide, the EU is a powerful actor. But there are also two very foreign policy issues where in the past the EU was successful, one of which is, and both relate to countries of concern from a European perspective, if I may say so, which is Iran and Russia. The first was the JCPOA, where the EU3, of course, with France, Britain, and Germany, but then also the EU High Representative was always present there and very instrumental in bringing about this very important agreement in 2016, which then we know how the story ended. But still, so this was a very important European foreign policy success, I think, and it was not incidentally that Donald Trump wanted to destroy precisely that. The second is Russia and sanctions against Russia, against the prospect of, against the backdrop of the different views, the multiple views on Russia, from Italy to Estonia and Portugal to Greece in the European Union. It is amazing that the European Union since 6 years has been agreeing every 6 months on extending these important and I think for Russia very biting problematic sanctions. So that is another show of unity. But now we come to the problematic aspects. I think that, and this will be very important when we look to future developments in Northern Africa, that the EU is always weak and divided when it comes to backing up foreign policy objectives, foreign policy positions with military power. And this is despite the fact that there have been formed battle groups and combined battalions of all kinds and numerous resolutions, but to bring them into the theater has been always a huge problem. And a second very problematic issue is that the EU gets easily divided when foreign powers try to intervene and breaking up the unity. And very successful in this has been China over the past years, putting all their strength in supporting or in convincing smaller EU countries voting against any resolutions which could be detrimental to China's interests. So those are all. And lately, of course, Donald Trump has been using this, and Russia has, to a lesser extent, tried to use this. So we'll see what I believe in the moment of truth might come sooner than we expect in the Eastern Mediterranean. It has been mentioned. This is actually Europe's direct neighborhood. It concerns directly a number of countries in the Mediterranean, first and foremost Italy, Greece, and Cyprus. And Germany has made this not in relation with the EU presidency, but Germany has made that a foreign policy priority with the Libya conference in January. So I think this is a region, and this is and the related issues will show how much there is of a geopolitical commission and how much geopolitics the EU is able to show. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very comprehensive analysis. I would like to excuse Mr. Peeters, who had to leave to another meeting, but we are grateful that he could join us at the beginning. I would like to turn now to Çiğdem to ask her about the Future of Europe conference. As you know, candidate countries have not been invited to formally contribute to it, and this process has been delayed due to the current pandemic, but will be hopefully starting in the fall. How do you see Turkey's role in shaping the future of Europe, Çiğdem? You have to unmute yourself, yes.
Okay. So thank you, Laura, for also initiating this webinar and giving us the opportunity to cooperate with you again. Regarding the future of Europe, as you said, maybe Turkey will not be there in an official capacity, but we civil society actors are very much interested in the debates that is going to happen there. And to begin with, let me say that as the Economic Development Foundation, we will be in a project together with 2 other think tanks in Turkey about how we can contribute to these debates on the future of Europe. I think that Turkish perspective or Turkish viewpoint can make an important contribution to these debates. And when I'm talking about Turkish perspective, of course, we have the government, the state level actors, but we also have civil society, academia, which can make a joint effort to contribute to this process. At the moment, of course, it seems that because of the problems in Turkey relations, Turkey is very much cut away from these debates, that it does not have any channels, official channels to contribute. So this is also another challenge for us. When we don't have any official channels, maybe civil society has an additional role, has an additional responsibility also to talk on behalf of Turkish society and to also make sure that Turkey will not be marginalized and isolated from Europe and take part in these debates. Again, regarding this, we may talk about maybe 2 important aspects or categories where Turkey can make an impact. One is the more technical economic issues. Here, of course, we have one important issue, which is the health issue. Now the COVID-19 crisis has created a health crisis also in many of the EU member states. In Turkey, again, we have also had our problems, but we have also seen that our health system has proved to be quite resilient. So this can also be an area where we can contribute to the EU in terms of resilience of health systems, in terms of the normalization process from COVID-19. Trade is another issue maybe related with that. Of course, the ambassador talked about some deterioration in the customs union, that Turkey has begun to implement new protective measures which are not in line with customs union. However, we should also take into consideration that this happened because of the stalemate in the customs union modernization process. Had the process started in 2016, maybe we would have ample time to resolve these issues between Turkey and the EU. So as this process prolongs and there is no formal negotiation between Turkey and the EU, then we will continue to see such problems, I'm afraid, in the customs union. But the EU is also in the midst of a transformation with regard to this digitalization, the Green Deal. It is also trying to revise its trade policy, and it is, of course, in favor of multilateralism, trying to stand protectionist pressures in international trade. Here, I think Turkey also can be an important partner, especially balance the, let's say, the overpowering influence of actors such as China or the new protectionist tendencies of the United States. But of course, we need an understanding between Turkey and the EU. We need to work on this. It cannot just happen all at once, but we need to start a process such as the customs union modernization. And these are the more technical issues. Then we can also talk about the political aspects, which also proves to be quite problematic between Turkey and the EU. So the Cyprus issue, Eastern Mediterranean drilling operations, Libya and Syria, these are like EU and Turkey are on opposite sides at the moment. Turkey has been implemented certain sanctions by the Council. However, we also see that these sanctions are not really working in order to change Turkey. Turkey is accused of acting unilaterally. However, we have to also take this in the context that the war in Syria has been ongoing since 2011. We had the Arab uprisings, which have totally transformed the neighborhood for Turkey. So Turkey has been under a lot of pressure. And when the EU cannot really exert influence with regard to these conflicts, when it cannot act in a unified way, when it cannot really make any difference in bringing it into the Syrian conflict, etc., then it is up to Turkey maybe to act unilaterally in order to, for its own interests and for its own safety. So I think we have to also take it into consideration. And rather than sanctions, I think we have to, on the part of the EU, we have to maybe take Turkey more maybe thoughtfully and try to understand Turkey's point of view, because Turkey is faced with these conflicts. It has had certain experiences in Syria, in Libya. It has now created also new military tools such as the drones, etc., new technologies in order to be more effective in these regions. So we can maybe criticize Turkey's moves, but I think we have to understand the root causes and try to work together on the part of the EU with Turkey in order to arrive at a mutual understanding and cooperate as much as possible to bring some security and stability to the region. So maybe I can end here and then I will continue.
Thank you very much, Çiğdem. And this is actually what I wanted to jump in, this loss of trust between Turkey and the EU and the difficulties in understanding each other, because EU-Turkey relations have been under strain for a long time now. This is not only this year that we have reached this situation. And as we can see, they continue to be high on the agenda, as we have seen this week following the Foreign Affairs Council that took place. So I wanted to ask Funda, because she has been working on this topic and trying to devise newer scenarios and options for the future of our relations. I would like to go back and ask you, how have we come to this point? I mean, why do we find ourselves in this situation?
Yes, thank you, Laura. I think a very crucial question. And indeed, Turkey is again high on the agenda and making the headlines, but unfortunately not positive headlines these days. And I think because, you know, as I said, I did research on the different drivers, we call it drivers of EU-Turkey relations within the framework of a Horizon 2020 project, the future of Europe, of EU-Turkey relations, sorry, which was called Future. And I think the first thing that we realized pretty fast is also that if you want to understand where we ended up with regards to EU-Turkey relations, one might be very inclined to simply look at Turkey because and what is happening in Turkey, because there are so many things to look at, and you know, things are developing so fast. But and there are so, and you know, basically Turkey is moving away from the Copenhagen criteria, and you know, there are developments that might actually highlight more conflict. But we should not forget about the other side of the coin, and this is what we called basically framed it under the slogan "It takes two to tango." So we have to also look at you know, both sides and how they interact. And I think it has already, you know, the most conflicts, also the recent conflicts, have already been mentioned with regards also what is happening in Turkey and with regards to the actions of Turkey. So what I would like to highlight first here is more on the drivers that basically link the two sides of the medal and that then basically also affect this relationship. And the first one is the conditionality in EU-Turkey relations. And this actually relates to trust, which has been repeatedly mentioned, and also what Ayhan Bey in the beginning said. No, it was Peeters, Mr. Peeters, who said, you know, it's also we have to be well aware of the careful with not creating another disillusionment with regards to the expectations. But you know, there is, and with regards to the enlargement procedure, there is a conditionality principle in the relationship that, of course, you know, you have a transformation process in the accession country, and at the end, there will be the membership. With thinning out the membership perspective, of course, this leverage of the European Union is also thinning out. And I think if we do not find a replacement for that, this is really creating problems, but it's not only a problem of the recent years, basically from the beginning with, because, you know, accession negotiations were opened after the so-called Big Bang enlargement, and they basically stalled right after they were opened. And you could not only identify an enlargement fatigue, but also particular Turkey fatigue with regards to, you know, the debates on whether Turkey really belonged to the European Union, whether it would be too big to join the European Union, too poor to join the European Union. So, you know, and with this particular Turkey fatigue, of course, this also thins out the conditionality. Another aspect is also the politicization, which we have to take into account, because EU-Turkey relations are increasingly politicized. And a very prominent example was the year 2017, when you had the referendum campaign in Turkey and the national elections in Germany and the Netherlands. And at that time, well, both in Germany and the Netherlands and in Turkey, the debates were very high on EU-Turkey relations and very negative. So I think this is also something to consider. Then another thing is the fact of increasing nationalism on both sides within the European Union and in Turkey, and also increasing Euroscepticism, which of course also affects the relationship. And then finally, it's also the issue of crisis, because you can identify the Eurozone crisis that rather kind of had a decreasing effect on the EU-Turkey relations in terms of the European Union was more focused internally to get its own house in order, and Turkey more claiming, you know, before you don't get your own house in order, we might not even be interested in joining. The migration crisis, on the other hand, was more a positive driver in the relationship. You know, not only promising closer cooperation within the migration policy, but also aiming for, in the beginning of the revitalization of accession negotiations, and also facilitating of the visa liberalization process. So you have crises that do affect the relations, and also Çiğdem has already highlighted more in how far the COVID-19 pandemic now might be a well, opportunity also for EU-Turkey relations and cooperation. Finally, because now I was only talking about the political dimension, you also have to consider different dimensions of the EU-Turkey relationship, because it is a complex relationship, and you can identify what we called conflictual cooperation. Because where we actually stand is, if you look at the political dimension, which I kind of lined out right now, and also the identity dimension, convergence or closer cooperation is really not an opportunity, but those two dimensions define the upper limits of the relationship. So how far can we go? On the other hand, you have other dimensions like security, migration, economics, and energy that define the lower limits of the relationship, under which basically the relations cannot fall, because due to mutual interests. And if you then look at those dimensions, conflict is also rising there. I mean, you have the security dimension with the conflicts in Syria, in the Eastern Mediterranean, in Libya, and also Turkey's cooperation once and again with Russia, which is of course increasing more conflict in spite of cooperation. But there is the economics dimension, which has also repeatedly been referred to as the area where it's not only cooperation but convergence because of mutual benefits, and this might be a starting point for future relations. And I'm going to end it there.
Thank you, Funda. I would like to turn to Michael now to ask about the relationship between Turkey and Germany, because it's a very important bilateral relationship that they have, possibly one of the most important with all the different member states of the European Union. And as it was mentioned before, what will be Turkey's role in the EU? How does Germany see Turkey's role in the EU, given that it's not even mentioned in the program of its presidency? So how do you expect relations to evolve both at the bilateral level and the EU level between Turkey and the EU?
In the past years, relations between Turkey and Germany has been a roller coaster relationship, I'd say, and maybe the German ambassador, Mr. Erdmann, who was in Ankara for the past 4 years, holds the record of being invited, or shall I say summoned, to the Turkish Foreign Ministry for, I think, roughly 30 times. So this shows you to a certain extent how much emotions and how much of a roller coaster was there. I think in general, if we look, and maybe a good example is looking back at the past when Chancellor Gerhard Schröder and Foreign Minister Joschka Fischer did everything to make membership negotiations with Turkey happening, and it was actually also partly an emotional relationship, I would say, emotional in politics and with a clear wish to bring Turkey closer to Europe or make it a member of the European Union. What we see today is a transactional relationship. There is not much of any feeling left after more than 15 years or 15 years with Merkel and Erdogan in power. So looking at this worn-out marriage, I'd say it's just about transactionalism, and there are aspects actually where cooperation sometimes can be very good. They do not hit the headlines. For example, on security and terrorism, there is, and many do not know about that. There's a quite close cooperation between Germany and Turkey. But let's look at the other issues. So Germany and Turkey haggle over travel advices, over the customs union, over refugees. But there are things which Turkey wants, and there are things which Germany wants. And I think Turkey primarily focuses on, now in this present situation, COVID-19 and the economic crisis in Turkey. Turkey clearly wants the lifting of all travel advice or restrictions, whatever there is, from the German Foreign Ministry. Of course, the modernization of the customs union, and Germany is critical on both. In turn, what Germany wants is Turkish cooperation, particularly in refugee issues, definitely not a return or a rehearsal of what happened in January, February at the Turkish-Greek border, when Erdogan sent refugees to the border, to the Greek border. And of course, I mentioned that before, how important Libya is to German foreign policy. Turkey's cooperation in the Libya process. So, and to sum up, I think it can't be anything else than a give and take. And this, I think they will have to sort this out. And the question is, and this is also why I think when Mevlüt Çavuşoğlu visited Berlin 2 weeks ago, that they tipped on all these issues, but they couldn't resolve for the moment the issues. But of course, they have sorted out where they can move and where they cannot move. what I think in this process of negotiation, which will be, I think, during the EU presidency of Germany and beyond, what can blow up the whole process of give and take is the Eastern Mediterranean imbroglio, because it is a very explosive issue linked to all the major issues, which is EU foreign policy, which is the Libya process, which is, of course, Greece and Cyprus and the blocking power the two countries have in the EU. And what I think what we need is contingency planning in case there is a conflict. Because we all know that there is not the possibilities we had back in the 1990s when Bill Clinton overnight talked to Yilmaz and Simitis over EMIA and Kardak, the EMIA-Kardak crisis. We don't know who's going to pick up the telephone this time. And this is, of course, a question. It is to Germany, it is to the EU presidency, and to the EU Commission, because this time America won't be of any help, definitely.
Thank you very much, Michael. And speaking about transactionalism, I would like to ask Çiğdem, what does Turkey want? I mean, Michael told us what Germany expects, but what is on the wish list of Turkey, and how committed do you see to the accession process?
What Turkey wants would be, like all the other candidate countries, a credible accession process. Until now, since the start of the accession process, we could never achieve this credibility, because just 1 year after the opening of accession negotiations, we had the suspension of 8 chapters, and then none of the chapters could be closed. So from the start, it was a faulty process, I think. So had we had a credible accession process, then it could have been very different. And the situation in Turkey in terms of Copenhagen criteria, democracy, rule of law could have also been very different. But this is, of course, the past now. So what we can do at the moment, I think one important thing is that the Turkish public is very much Western oriented. I mean, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of, let's say, connections, let's say, mostly their destination is Europe, had always been Europe. And in consecutive opinion polls, we have also seen that given a chance to become a member of the European Union, Turkish public supported membership. So last year we had a survey together with TEPAL, and 60% said that they would support Turkey's membership. However, only 23% actually believed that membership would actually take place in the near future. So there is a disappointment with this whole accession process. And also for a number of years, of course, we had a stalemate in the accession negotiations. As you have said, with the refugee deal, also we had the start of a very transactional sort of process without any basis for norms or values, but just Turkey's role in, let's say, protecting the EU from migration and refugee flows. So it has entered into a very maybe unexpected and unwanted destination. But I think that this credibility is very important. We have seen that the EU did not really act very consistently, did not really have a very effective and realistic policy towards Turkey. For example, rule of law issues have always been a problem, but the EU never made an effort to open the chapters related with these fundamentals, the rule of law chapters, judiciary, independence of judiciary chapters. So it was like criticizing Turkey and not really making an effort for Turkey to come closer to the EU. So I think it is true to say that Turkey has been moving away from Europe. We have seen it in council conclusions. We have seen the former Commission President, Mr. Juncker, say it. He said that Turkey is moving in giant steps away from Europe. But it has been also the case, I think, that Turkey has been pushed away from Europe because of all these inconsistencies of the European Union, at least no measures were taken to prevent Turkey's movement away from Europe. So we have seen that the accession process did not really lead to an accession of Turkey. Of course, this issue is not only linked with Turkey relations, but it's a broader issue of enlargement fatigue and the changes in the international system. However, I think when the EU loses any sort of influence over Turkey to make an impact on democracy, rule of law, judiciary issues in Turkey, this is also impacting on the EU, internal politics of the EU. So we see that also some of the member states are becoming much bolder in, let's say, trying to, for example, put pressure on judiciary or civil society, as we have seen, especially in some member states. So I think what happens in Turkey is not only an issue which is just specific to Turkey, but it also affects the EU values debates inside the European Union. So I think the EU should make an effort to really continue its engagement with Turkey. Otherwise, the whole situation deteriorates, and now we have come to a very confrontational sort of issue. I mean, let's say, condemning Turkey has been a common practice. In Eastern Mediterranean, Turkey is condemned for not respecting the sovereignty of Cyprus, but Turkey's stance is very clear, has always been clear from the start regarding Cyprus. Turkey's position has been clear. So what the EU could have done is not just to criticize Turkey or to try to place sanctions on Turkey, but also maybe to try to make an effort to resolve the Cyprus issue. We had a chance in Crown Montana several years ago, but it has been lost. So just wishing that these problems will go away will not help. So there should be some engagement with Turkey in order to resolve these issues. Otherwise, it may, as Mr. Taumann said, it may even be worse. So I think it is still not late to take action. The EU should take action for dialogue, trust, and engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Çiğdem. And now we're entering the last block of questions. I'm monitoring the questions that we are receiving through the Q&A, and I will include some of these in the... yes.
Before you continue, can I add several points to Çiğdem?
Sure, please.
Okay. First of all, I agree with what Çiğdem is saying. Pushing us away is making things more difficult. There are several issues that need to be addressed. One of them, for instance, Çiğdem just mentioned, opening up chapters is it is treated, I mean, EU is treating us as a gift. But on the other hand, you know, I'm representing one of the largest industries of Turkey. Actually, for instance, environment chapter has been opened, and the way our companies are adapting to the regulations is very costly. But we are doing it. So what I'm trying to say is opening up all the chapters is not, I mean, you don't have to close them. The process continues, but it brings Turkey closer. So this is one of the things that could be done without really doing much. We have to also realize since 1996, trade deficit between Europe and Turkey has reached to over $300 billion. So this is a big deficit on Turkey's side. This is an issue also. And another issue is visa, free travel. It is costing Turkish citizens 100 million euros per year for visa applications. It does not include other fees. You know, maybe it's twice as much, I don't know. But this is very costly process. And can you imagine if I am, as a businessman, coming to Germany to make a deal with my counterpart, I have to get a letter from them, invitation letter from them to come to Germany for visa purposes and then negotiate with them. That's not fair, to say the least. And one other issue I would like to tell, for migration issue is a major issue. In Germany, Germany spends about 30,000 euro per year per migrant. Now, Turkey is holding 3.5 Syrian refugees for Europe more than 7 years now. The calculation is enormous, so I'm not going to go over the numbers, but this is a big cost for Turkey to carry. You cannot just pay 3 billion or 6 billion to cover it up. It's enormous expense, and Turkish laborers, especially, we currently have over 20%, I think, unemployment rate. Turkish workers are sharing their bread on their table with Syrian refugees. So this is also a very costly process for Turkey as well. So I think our friends should consider these facts when they are making decisions for Turkey. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Ayhan, for these additions. I see that now the questions are picking up, and time is short, and we still have to hear from Mr. Sánchez Amor. So I would like to ask you to be very brief in the next 3 questions, and I'm gonna try to include some of the comments that were made. The first question is for you, Funda, and it's related. We received a comment from Christian Berger from Istanbul, the Henrik Böll Foundation, saying something that it's actually right, in the sense that we have been hearing the same discussions all over about the accession negotiations framework. We all know it's not working. I mean, whether this, I mean, we can change paths from here and depart from this discussion, because realistically speaking about opening chapters is not possible at the moment. But now we have been seeing interesting developments in this regard. We have heard Minister Çavuşoğlu speaking about compartmentalization of the relations, and also Borrel speaking about a holistic approach. So what is your take on that? Do you see any change in narratives in this regard?
Yes, thank you, Laura. And I think this is a very relevant question, which we also, at the end of our research project, heatedly discussed, so to say, because our solution in the end was that, I mean, we all know, and both sides know, that currently the accession procedure is simply a shell, so to speak. So, you know, accession is not, I mean, realistically, it's nothing that's going to happen in the short term, in the midterm, or eventually at some point. I mean, this is really something that we have to realize because there's so many things that need to be happening. So, of course, you know, with regards to that background, I can kind of also understand that the European Parliament has now repeatedly, over the past years, demanded or asked for suspension or cancellation of the accession procedure, because, you know, we have to move on and maybe find another framework. However, and I think this is also a way of looking at it, and not less important, is that, of course, a cancellation of this accession process as such is already a sign. So I think as long as there is not an alternative, you know, as long as we have not found an alternative way of framing the relationship, we should keep the framework there. So, you know, so somewhere there without really kind of moving on to that, but it at least holds, you know, the framework for the relations. At the same time, it's very important to then start to look for alternative forms of accession. We called it dynamic association. And this is exactly also what Michael was referring to with regards to, you know, maybe a transactional relationship, but of course also only a purely transactional relationship would also not give you justice to the complexity of the EU-Turkey relations. So I think we have to find a way in between. And so, of course, you know, focusing right now on those potentials and positive areas of cooperation, and not forgetting about a rules-based framework. And this is why I think, and this has repeatedly been mentioned before, you know, starting with modernization of the customs union, this might give you exactly that. Because on the one hand, you have the mutual benefits within an area which is, you know, a rather positive connotation for the EU-Turkey relationship, but also Turkey would need to reform, you know, in certain sectors, and you know, you have a rules-based element in that regard. So you could at least start with the customs union in order to have, you know, both a more interest-driven relationship and also a rules-based framework. The way now on how to proceed and how to negotiate that, of course, there would be an option of, you know, having a list of also some sort of chapters, in just like with the accession negotiations, and then do it, you know, step by step, and then reforming or negotiating one area and only starting with the next one after you have finished the negotiations on that in that particular area, so that you have a step-by-step approach of modernizing the customs union, because of course it is also blocked for political reasons at the moment. But I think, and this is where I want to end, because, you know, finding an institutional framework is also highly difficult, because you would then need to frame of the end point, you know, would it be an association? How much say would Turkey have in terms of participation in the European Union? Would it be something like the future relationship with the UK, or is it something else? But, you know, as long as you're not a member, you will not, most likely not have a say in EU policy making. So this is basically the difference between membership and non-membership. And of course, we're facing some trends of differentiated integration, and the more you differentiate the European Union, the dividing line between members and non-members might thin out, but this is really a more future scenario. But I think what is also very important, and this might be a starting point, and this then relates also to the question of, you know, repeating the debates or not, it's then also looking at the narratives, because currently we have more a debate, and well, basically the EU-Turkey relationships is overloaded with a more negative narratives, and then what you can call a negative escalation ladder, so that you really have lots of accusations on both sides. And I think also what I find important or interesting to look at is also how the EU is referring in which situation to Turkey. Turkey has been called very different names already. So it's either the accession candidate, it's a key partner, it's a key strategic partner, it's an important partner, and Borrel was just referring to an important country. So I don't know whether this is telling us something, might also be something to look at. But basically it's really the question of narratives and how to frame it. And here we also have to understand that if you look at the narratives on EU-Turkey relations, regardless of whether it's more the westernization narrative or more with the great hair of the Ottoman Empire narrative, or more a strong leader narrative, membership is always part of the plot. I mean, it might be used to different means, but membership is a very important part of the narratives on EU-Turkey relations within Turkey. So I think that is also something to consider if we want to focus on the debates and on the future relationship. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Funda. And now that we have covered the long list of grievances that we have in our relationship, I think it's time to also speak about the opportunities. The customs union has been mentioned. We have received a lot of questions on that, and I wanted to ask Çiğdem to briefly explain, if possible, how realistic is to expect progress in this area, a particular area. And I would like to add to this question a comment that we have received from Ayhan Tekin from the Women's Entrepreneurs Association of Turkey concerning how can the gender perspective be included in the benefits that will come about the modernization of the customs union.
Okay, so as Funda has just mentioned, we have an accession process which is not really, which is de facto, let's say, suspended. And in the absence of any other mechanism, customs union modernization seems as the most suitable, most conducive mechanism to keep Turkey and the EU engagement, and also for Turkey to converge towards EU norms and EU standards. So it will be also part of this rule-based system that we are talking about. The customs union entered into force in 1996, and it has been now 24 years. So it has become a bit outdated, let's say. It is only limited to industrial goods, about, let's say, 20% of the economy, but we have to also take into consideration maybe more agricultural liberalization, also services being included into the remit of this bilateral trade framework, also maybe public procurement, etc. So we can actually increase the scope of this economic integration between Turkey and the European Union. Another is, of course, as Ayhan Bey has already mentioned, the problems in the current customs union, like the free trade agreements, non-tariff barriers, lack of effective dispute resolution mechanisms. So I think the customs union, if we leave it this way, if we do not really do anything to revise it and modernize it, it will continue to deteriorate. So we will have, let's say, Turkey not fulfilling its commitments, or the EU imposing certain sanctions against Turkey, etc. So we have to take it into consideration. Again, the gender perspective is very important, because both agriculture and services are areas where women are also employed at a higher rate. So together with this, maybe we can also help the situation and integrate the gender perspective in the focus of the customs union. Also, another important thing is that as I've said before, the EU is also in a quite important process. After COVID-19, we have seen digitalization has become more important, sustainability, resilience has become more important. So I think we also need to revise and upgrade Turkey relations in the trade and economic aspects, in order to also integrate these new dimensions in the relationship. So I just want to make a reference to this new public consultation which has been started by the EU in terms of revising its trade strategy. It says that part of the strategy is about multilateralism, supporting multilateralism, building mutually beneficial partnerships, and promoting multilateral, plurilateral, and bilateral trade agreements. So this is an important pillar of the EU, its global actorness, especially in terms of trade. So how can the EU, when it is so much intent on building partnerships and free trade agreements, how can it leave the customs union as it is and prevent its further deterioration? As we said, Turkey is the 5th trade partner for the EU, so I think it is imperative for the EU to mend this relationship and to actually both increase the scope and to also revise the functioning of the customs union. So this is also an integral part, because if the EU is going to create a resilient and sustainable economy, it will not be only with the member states, but it will be with its close partners. And Turkey, in this sense, stands out as a customs union partner. So Turkey has to adapt to these changing priorities of the EU, and the customs union would be one very important mechanism to do that. However, when you ask me if I expect any movement in the German presidency, I acknowledge that there are important barriers. These barriers are related with these issues, the sanctions at the moment. The Association Council cannot meet. The high-level economic or political dialogues are not continuing because of the sanctions. So we are at a very critical situation in that regard. Also, any move, as Ayhan Bey has said, it sometimes is difficult for politicians in the EU to really convince the public opinion when they engage in a certain measure against Turkey. So if they open the customs union while they are saying that there are important democracy, rule of law problems in Turkey, then it may be difficult convince the public to support the politicians. So there are problems, but I think despite all these difficulties, it is much more important to start this process, because otherwise we will have new problems in the future. One important, just last point, one important problem is Brexit. So now I see that there is the possibility of a no deal between the United Kingdom and the EU at the end of this year. However, at the same time, Turkey is continuing its negotiations with the UK. We may arrive at such a point when the EU, if the EU cannot really agree on a new agreement with the UK, Turkey can go ahead and sign the agreement. So this will be, again, a major stumbling block for the customs union relationship. So we need to take all these factors into account, and we need to take action now, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are running out of time, but I would like to ask a last question to Michael to be answered very quickly, because it hasn't been even mentioned much during the discussion, which is, what can we expect as regards the so-called EU-Turkey refugee deal in the coming 6 months? Do you expect reaching any agreement on the review of its implementation?
I think that the events in February, March have shown how important and overdue an extension and a renewal of this refugee deal is. Let me just say that also the crisis has shown that I believe it's a wrong notion, both sometimes in Turkey and in Europe and in Germany, that the Syrian refugees, the 3.5 million refugees from Syria in Turkey, they are there, and all they think about every day is going to Europe, and as soon as the borders open, they would leave the country. This is not the case anymore. I spent some time last year there and speaking to many of these, to many refugees, and they have, after 8, 7, 5, whatever years, depending on when they came, they have made a living there, and their children go to school. We have to face, and this is the challenge about the refugee deal, we have to face the reality that refugees are, specifically in Turkey, the most part, there are refugees, more than 1 million in Germany and in other European countries. So how do we proceed from here? There is, I know, in the German Foreign Ministry, they are pondering several options how to extend the deal. First, and there are 4 major questions to be tackled. The first thing is how much, the money. Then very important, and this has proven to be a tricky issue in the past month, how is this money being distributed, through which agencies? This is a thorny issue. Turkey would like to involve more Turkish state agencies. The European Union wants to avoid that, and so on. So they have to agree on that. Third is a mechanism, a new mechanism for the Greek islands, because it hasn't worked from the outset for different reasons. And I think, of course, now against the backdrop of the crisis we've seen at the beginning of this year, that this would not be repeated, no more refugees being sent or bused deliberately to the border. So I think we will most probably see, I'm not sure whether it's within the coming 6 months or right after, but we will see an agreement there, because it's in the interest of both sides. And it's, may I reiterate that once more, it's a perfect example of transactionalism, of give and take between Turkey and the European Union.
Thank you very much, Michael. And now we come to Mr. Nacho Sánchez Amor. I have a couple of questions that were addressed to you directly, and I will summarize them briefly. One is from Aslihan from Kagider, again, about the lack of a gender perspective when it comes to the EU recovery plans. And also she would like to hear your thoughts about how can the gender component be part of our relations with Turkey, whether you would see more funds being monitored from a gender perspective, and how to include women voices in our relations. We have another question from the civil society as well, from Heidi, Checks and Balances Network, asking, we have so many, I mean, there are so many topics on the table that especially the civil society in Turkey is working on. So she's wondering, how can we bring civil society and NGOs to the table to contribute to an improvement of EU-Turkey relations. And lastly, from Mustafa Yildiz, a master's student of European Affairs, he is wondering when Turkey will be included in the list of safe countries to come to the EU, and also what are your suggestions to mend the trust and dialogue problems that we have in our relationship? The floor is yours. You're muted, Nacho. I'm sorry.
It's okay? Oh, sorry. It's absolutely impossible to tackle everything that you mentioned in your last question, because I would like to send a more general view on the relations. And allow me to do that, and I'm trying to enter in the other issues later. What do the European Union, what does we offer the European Union to Turkey? We offer the best. We offer the jewel of the crown. We offer the membership. Sometimes that seems to be received as a punishment. If you hear some high officials, Turkish officials, talking about the European Union, but what we offer is the jewel of the crown. We offer the membership. We can offer anything more than that. For that reason, the frame of our relation is that Turkey is a candidate country. And to be a candidate country means a progressive alignment in everything. In everything. This is a key question to talk with our Turkish interlocutors, because there is a clear intention from many Turkish interlocutors to compartmentalize the relation. Okay, accession process is frozen. Let's talk about custom union. Oh, well, accession process is, why don't we talk about drilling or Libya? And I want to pass this clear message. To be a candidate means a progressive alignment in everything. Of course, with different demands, with different exigencies, with different level of commitments in every folder. But as a whole, the candidate country has to conduct a progressive alignment. And what do we have with Turkey is a complete, not alignment, but on the contrary, regression in every aspect of our relation. Why? Because there is, you all talk about that, there is a lack of trust in the relation. And this is a key question. And for that reason, it's not so easy to jump from one folder to another, because the common ground is a complete lack of trust that we both gained harshly in the last years, both sides, and this ground is affecting any aspect of the relation. Okay, accession is frozen. I think it's mainly frozen because there was a consistent, thick, deliberate state policy on crushing any bubble, any minor bubble of public criticism. This is not just about the purge. This is not about the reaction of a country against an existential threat. It was the coup. This has been a state policy. For some reasons I don't want to analyze, the government decided any kind of criticism has to be allowed. And the pressure on judiciary, and the pressure on civil society, and the pressure from NGOs is offering exactly the same aspect or the same image. Visa liberalization. When Mr. Borrel visited Ankara in the last week, and we had the opportunity to have probably one of the worst examples of a diplomatic press conference, he was accused, the European Union has been accused of not abide our commitments on the migration, on visa liberalization, because it was linked to the migration deal of the justice thing. But why don't we be clear on that? Turkey decided not to advance in any of the reforms needed to meet the visa liberalization standards or benchmark. You simply decide not to go. You didn't come to Europol. You didn't reform your data protection law. You didn't change your anti-terrorism law that is used for any scope of political criticism. And it has been your decision, Turkey's decision. It's not on us. If visa liberalization is not advancing, it's because you decide to stop the reforms that you know very clear you have to do if you want to meet this benchmark. Yeah, custom unions. I'm fully aware that the only folder in which we could eventually have a minor and a stretch opportunity window is custom unions. But just now, we are quarreling in the World Trade Association. And we are accusing each other, or mainly the European Union is accusing Turkey of put some irritant measures on the table. And in my view, I think there is a different view, because from Turkey, if we create some problems in the current custom union mechanism, that could be help the European Union to decide to go to renegotiate. I'm not sure about this tactic. I'm not sure if the best ground to advance to an update is to create problems in the current custom union. Migrations. Okay, there is this unfounded accusation on not to abide on our commitments in the statement of the year 16. We are paying. We are not paying. We are not transferring money to the Turkish treasury. This is clear, and this is one of the key questions for the European Parliament. But we are paying. We are paying the programs. We put 500 million euros new weeks ago to be aware of some of the programs, the personal card program, and the school program is going to be funded when they are going to finish in the coming month. But we abide on our commitments in migration committee. But in the press conference, it was clearly stated by the Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Çavuşoğlu, European Union is not abiding on the commitments on migration. On external policy, that the academics usually use this assertive foreign policy, is completely divergent from the European Union. Not just because in some dossiers, like in Libya, there are different positions in the European Union. As a whole, the way you conduct your foreign policy is completely against the way Europe promotes foreign policies elsewhere. Of course, I agree. I always recognize that you have a security issue or security problem, but this is not a permit to launch a military operation in another country like Syria. Or I could understand that the public opinion in Turkey is very worried about what always happened in the last years in the Syria border, and this is a security concern. But what about Libya? Is Libya about your security, or is Libya about other, let's say, political agenda? And of course, when Turkey asks for, the European Union has to be a honest broker in the problem with Cyprus and Greece. You have to be aware that it's Cyprus and Greece, there are no third countries. We can be a mediator because we are Greece and we are Cyprus. And this is a difficult situation for us because we have to show, of course, our solidarity with the country, and that could damage this Turkish idea that the European Union has to be the broker of an agreement. Anyway, Mr. Borrell sent again the same message to Turkey. We have to continue talking. We have to create the grounds to regain trust, because if we don't regain trust, there is no any opportunity to Turkey, of course, not to open any chapter in the accession process, not even to talk plainly and clearly on the custom union, and probably these divergences are going to gain ground because it's happening in everything. It's happening, and for me it's a very different issue. It's happening with Hagia Sophia. If Turkey finally is quitting the Istanbul Convention on gender violence, it's an enormous step away from Europe. And I know that when that kind of things start to be talked in some media in Turkey is to prepare the public opinion for that kind of things. And I didn't receive, as a Turkish rapporteur on the parliament, I didn't receive one single good news in a year. One single good news. not in the human rights, not in the foreign policy, not in visa liberalization, in anything. The only more or less normalized relation we have is migration. And even in that folder, we have to hear that we have been accused of not abiding. I'm very sorry not to be very optimistic, but I do really share the view of Borrel. We have to sit and talk again, and we have to regain trust, because if we continue these completely divergent ways or paths, we are probably not being able to be even good neighbors. I agree with some of you that say the frame is the candidacy and the accession process. I agree, we have to maintain that. And I'm completely aware of we have to offer Turkey a credible path. And when I say credible path, is my theory of the what if. What if country in the coming 10 years finally reach every benchmark? Is it going to happen a kind of political veto to the membership? Because this is the key question from our side. If not, we are just using the accession process like kind of cynical, mutual, useful frame for our relation, not to confess that in any way this is a goal, but simply a practical frame to conduct our relation. And I do really stand for the membership of Turkey. We have to be very clear on our side to offer a credible path to the accession. But for the moment, the movements, in my view, from Turkey in the last year is showing that despite the official narrative on the importance of the accession process, there are other agendas more powerful than this European agenda in the Turkish official grounds. And it's different in the civil society. And you talk about civil society. We, as a parliament, we cut an enormous amount of money that has been delivered to Turkey in the last years. We only keep the money dedicated to the civil society, because we know there is a civil society pro-European that wants to approach to European standards in every aspect of the life, and there is probably the only oxygen they are receiving from the European Union, that money from Europe. On the safe country, I'm completely fully aware that we didn't do our homework in migration. This is a very complex dossier for the European Union, and we didn't act properly. And that creates, again, the opportunity to Turkey to put some pressure on the European Union. But as Michael said, the way to conduct the way to create some empathy in Europe about the burden you have, having that enormous amount of Syrian refugees, is not to send the Syrian refugees to the Greek border. No, it's not to create the false impression that the border has been open. It's not to spread news saying 140,000 Syrian refugees passed to Greece, because there were only a few dozens, and they have been returned back to Turkey, to Turkey, yes. And for that reason, I think we have to create some ground. The tide is rising. If you heard the last debate we had in the parliament, there was an enormous amount of people asking for the termination, complete termination of the accession process. And there is common sense from some people dealing with Turkey in this parliament, but we have to fight every word in every occasion, because any agreement, even the most rational agreement with Turkey, is going to be considered here, that corridors, like a gift to Erdogan, and an endorsement of the domestic policies in Turkey. And this is a problem. And for us, it's quite difficult to pass the message to our colleagues in the parliament to say, no, this money is not for the Turkish government. This money for the credit cards that the Syrian families has as refugees. And this money is for the families who send the children to the schools. But every time we have to deal with Turkey, you have to be aware the tide is rising, and is rising with an enormous speed. And if you follow that, the last debate we have, there is a very powerful colleagues here, and there is some political groups endorsing more and more this idea. We are done with Turkey. We have to look for another frame for our relation with a very important neighbor. And in my view, because I have to deal with Turkey on a daily basis, this is a mistake. And I always try to pass the message to my colleagues, but I have to say, I know I'm going to have a lot of problems trying to introduce in the Turkish report in the coming months that more cold, rational approach. And these are my grievances. Sorry, these are my difficulties that I have to deal with in the coming months. But please send some positive signal to Europe, in the drillings especially, because it's the most pungent issue, but in any aspect of our relation, the people struggling for Turkey in the European Union, we do really need some good news in the coming months. There is no more time. If we enter in a frame of sanctions, this is going to be difficult to reverse. We do need some positive news from Turkey in the coming months. This is my main message to our Turkish friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nacho, for this very honest account, but at the same time, we are clinging to the optimism of some of your words and hoping that this relation will improve in the coming months. Organizations like ours and IKV are trying to bridge these agreements and misunderstandings. From my side, I just want to thank you, all the speakers, for your contributions, and all the participants for being here, and also Pinar for the interpretation. I would just like to, we are slightly over time, but if Ayhan Bey has any just farewell remarks, I invite you to take the floor and close this webinar.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you for my friend Mr. Sanchez's remarks. Unfortunately, I agree with them in most issues about trust issue. We have unfortunately lost in trust in between us. And there are several issues. I don't want to go into deep discussion, but in Cyprus case, you know, Turkish Cypriots trusted European Union decision, but then Southern Cyprus was fully member without the Northern Cyprus being a part of it. So this is a loss of trust. And also, Mr. Sanchez, in Turkish media, we have a lot of news in Iraq and in Syria, finding a lot of weapons made in European Union or USA being used against Turkish people. So these are the things that I think causing a lot of trust issues in between the two parts. I agree, Turkey has has been away from Copenhagen criteria last 10 years, 15 years maybe, because we were very close in the early 2000s. So we need to work on it. But I think Turkey is a critical neighbor. And after Brexit, I think we might be even more critical to you guys than later. But I think the main issue is both Turkey and EU should not use domestic politics against our relations. I think we have used it and some of the leaders in your in European Union mixes domestic politics with international politics. I think this is also hurting our relations, and we hope we come up with positive agendas in the future while Germany is leading the presidency of the European Union, and make a decision. Again, we thank all the participants for their opinions, sharing with us, and we hope to meet soon.